Governance analysts have described the creation of what seem to be too many new ministries in President Akufo-Addo's government as an avenue for jobs for NPP loyalists. This, they are warning, if not managed well, could affect the public purse and not necessarily yield the positive results we've been yearning for. President Akufo-Addo, a few hours ago, named 11 more ministerial nominees, making a 36 squad waiting approval from Parliament, with some interesting additional ministries, including that of Business Development, Ministry for Special Development Initiative, and Ministry for Inner Cities and Zongo Development.
It was to meet the challenge of social development in Zongos that we committed ourselves to establishing a Zongo Development Fund, and also committed ourselves to making a special effort to develop our inner cities.
Do we necessarily need so many ministries to get the task ahead executed? Also, NDC's warning of reprisal attacks in self-defense if President Akufo-Addo does not call to order the invisible forces, a vigilante group associated with the NPP, to order in what it describes as unwarranted attacks being unleashed on NDC supporters.
Is Nana Akufo-Addo saying he is not aware of the ghoulish conduct of his invisible forces? Or is it true that we are hearing, what we are hearing, that the invisible forces are working with the tacit approval of their boss, Nana Akufo-Addo?
Meanwhile, Majority Leader Oseche Mensah-Bonsu has been defending the situation.
I believe that those events were wrong yesterday, and they are wrong today as well.
We will be tapping into some governance and security brains to get responses to these issues. This is today's big story. My name is Aisha Bryan. First, let's look at the ministerial appointments for today. Minister for Planning is going to Professor Jan Bafo, and he's MP for Wenchi. Minister of Tourism, Culture and Creative Arts, Catherine Ablema Afeku, MP for Evalui Ajomoro Jura constituency. Minister for Information, Mustafa Hamid, who was spokesperson for the president, and Minister for Special Development Initiative will be headed by Mavis Hawa Kunsing, his MP for Ewutu. She is MP for Ewutu Senior East. Minister of Youth and Sports, Isaac Esiama, MP for Etrimam Ponua constituency. Minister for Fisheries is going to Elizabeth Afole Kwe, MP for Krowo. Minister of Chieftaincy and Religious Affairs, Kofi Jamesi. Minister of Aviation, Cecilia Dapa. Minister of Inner Cities and Zongo Development is going to Abubakar Boniface Sadiq. Minister of Business Development, Awal Mohammed. Minister for Parliamentary Affairs, Oseche Mensah-Bonsu, MP for Swami, and Majority Leader. We can listen to the President justifying the creation of these new ministries.
All of us within the political space are now agreed that we have to take the issue of the planning of the development of our economy seriously. And that is why a lot of support has been given to the National Development Planning Commission, which has come out, as you know, with a 40-year program for national development and set out in broad terms what the targets are. But there's an issue, and the issue is the government that is elected at a given time has to be able to factor its priorities and its development agenda within the overall context of the that broad national plan. And discussions that I've already had with members of the Planning Commission indicate that for them and for me, it would be useful to have a point of reference in the administration for this process of reconciling the agenda of the MPP and the mandate that we have in our manifesto within the broad framework of the development plan. And in order to do so, to look around, and I found somebody who's ideally suited, who in fact used to run the development planning, the NDPC. He is a very respected economist, was deputy minister for the finance in President Kufuor's time, has, as I said, been Director General of the National Development Planning Commission, and is one of the renowned economists in our country. I believe that he's ideally suited for this task of translating the NPP manifesto and the NPP priorities within the broad framework of the National Development Plan. So he's going to be the person who will be a minister in the office of the president who is going to be responsible for this task. It's an important task because if we are agreed on the broad principles of national development, we also have to factor into it the mandate that a given government gets at any one time. And that is the work that Professor Jan Bafo, MP for Wenchi, Buzia's seat, historic seat in Ghanaian politics, that is the role that he's going to play. One of the critical areas of concern for the social cohesion and harmony of our country is the developments that are taking place in our inner cities and in our zongos. It was to meet the challenge of social development in zongos that we committed ourselves to establishing a Zongo Development Fund, and also committed ourselves to making a special effort to develop our inner cities. Again, it's my view that if we're to succeed, not only in delivering on the promises of our manifesto, but more importantly, in the reasons for the promises of the manifesto, the development of our inner cities and our zongos, that they don't become areas of despair, areas of difficulty, areas of social conflict. The development that has to take place has to be coordinated, has to fit in with the overall national economic plan and promotion that we are engaged in. And I don't think that around me, I can think of a more appropriate person. He's already the darling of the Zongos. Everybody knows that in Ghana. He's won a big election there. People thought it was impossible, but he did it. And his standing in the communities in which he's going to be working are very, very high. I think that if anybody can deliver on our commitments to the Zongo people and help in the upliftment of the life of our inner cities, it is Boniface Sadiq, now the MP for Medina and the Minister for the Inner City and Zongo Development. Boniface.
So that was President Akufo-Addo actually explaining why he's had to create so many ministries. He also explains that some of these ministries won't actually be a full-fledged ministry. Some of them will be working from the Flagstaff House. Let's do some analysis now. Now, joining me in the studio, Wing Commander Sogwaja retired is a security analyst, and he joins me in studio. Plus, David Agbe, who is a governance analyst and, in fact, a friend to today's big story. You're welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
Let me begin with you, David. What's your preliminary observation of this last batch of appointment?
Actually, I must say that with the list of the various ministers and appointees so far, I think that it is too much for a young country like Ghana, almost about 35 ministries. It is too much if you analyze it critically from business point
36.
of view and public administration point of view. You realize that it is too much for a young country that is growing when it comes to getting money, when it comes to developing our economy. It's quite too much. It is going to more like cost the public purse a lot. And so looking at it, strategically, you could realize that if they could merge some of the ministry, some of them you see business development, and then you see special development, initiative. You could realize that strategically and branding-wise, you could merge those two ministries.
And I was
what is
coming
business
to that.
development?
There's one also called planning.
Planning, for instance, is okay.
Our country.
Planning is okay. You could say that maybe National Development Planning Commission, that one could be a ministry where you have Professor Jan Bafo, who is well, established when it comes to economic analysis and all that, be able to, steer the affairs of such a ministry where they will be planning ahead of this country. It is quite good. But when you take development, special initiative, it's just like the thinking has not been properly done. And so one would have expected that they will be able to analyze it very well before those ministries are mentioned. And I don't think that they are, branding and they are doing something good enough as far as my knowledge about business development and politics is concerned.
Well, the president has explained that indeed it's just similar to what we saw in the NDC government, Minister of State at the presidency. I mean, it's going to be that kind of thing, sort of. So that should be accepted, isn't it?
Aisha, let me re-emphasize that I think that some of them could be merged.
Right.
Business development, special initiative, and there is another funny one, Zongo. Is
exactly
it inner
cities and Zongo development?
I mean, I think that MPP could do better. And we have a lot of fine mind, fine intellectuals in there, and I think that they should be able to fine-tune it. To be able to create a ministry, you need to be more strategic and be able to think between the line and be able to come out with a name that could more like sound like a government is actually, doing something. But when you see some of the names, it's more like a funny to me. More like
funny. But we've also seen the resurfacing of Ministry of Parliamentary Affairs, Ministry of Fisheries and Aquaculture. We know it existed in the Akufo-Addo administration, but we didn't see that in the NDC government's 8 years. And we're now going to see a similar thing now. What do you think about it?
I think that ministry, Madam Sherry, during the NDC administration, fishery, they were trying to do quite a number of things over there, but we could do better. And so during President Kufuor's regime too, they did something of a similar nature. And so I'm not surprised that they have a special ministry for it. I mean, fishery is a good one. We have our lands there. We can develop that industry and be able to employ a number of people. But I think that we should be able to plan very well and be able to think through between the lines before creating, ministry. I mean, we should be able to study how public administration actually works and how we can be able to create ministries that will be able to propel this country for us to develop. But then it is not just creating a ministry by creating a sect. We need to find out whether such a ministry is going to do something strategically to be able to, uplift this economy. So some of them, I think that it is not something that I will say is good. However, government can do anything depending on the situation. And I think that MPP promised a lot. And so some of these ministries is going to also create a lot of avenue for, a lot of citizens to also get employment. And so I am not surprised. I mean, reading through the history of this country, anytime MPP comes to power, you realize that the ministries keeps on, growing. During President Kufuor's time, we even saw Ministry of, is it beautification of the capital city? And so
like
you shouldn't be surprised that Inner City and Zongo Development Ministry is also coming onto the table.
Probably that's coming because of the strong promise Nana-Addo made to the Zongo community to build the Zongo community. Remember, he talked about the Zongo Development Fund and all of that. And definitely, probably that's why he's putting somebody in charge of that business. And
my good friend Kamaradin will be so happy and more enthused about that ministry. But then, do we need a ministry for Zongo development? I think that other ministry could take charge of it. Whatever activities, whatever developmental project that they want to earmark for the Zongo communities around the country. Zongo communities are spread out across the length and breadth of this country. We could be able to look at the business development perspective. What is it that we could do when it comes to development? What do Zongo people need? Is it about education? Is it about employment avenue? Is it about the environment where everybody wants to see that the Zongo is comparatively also developed? And so when it comes to more like the business development angle, that Zongo development project could be done by, but to create a ministry specifically for Zongo communities, I think that it is a bit questionable. However, let's see how best they are going to fashion out policies for the Zongo community and for all of us to actually benefit.
To benefit from it. Also, Chairman of the NDC, Kofi Pothofi, catalogues attacks of state installations, including the Flagstaff House, which have come under attack by alleged MPP supporters. He's demanding immediate intervention by the president. Failure to do so, he warns the NDC will hit back.
Is Nana Akufo-Addo saying he is not aware of the ghoulish conduct of his invisible forces? Or is it true that what we are hearing, that the invisible forces are working with the tacit approval of their boss, Nana Akufo-Addo? Friends of the media, I crave your indulgence to catalog a few of the worrying breaches that have come to our attention. Monday, January 9th, a group of young persons numbering about 30 invaded the premises of the Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority, TEMA, and attacked management and staff and demanded to be offered immediate employment. Another noisy and indisciplined group in a convoy of 3 vehicles invaded the passport office in Accra, disrupted work and continuously intimidated staff and demanded the immediate resignation of the director, Mr. Alexander Grant Ntiakwa. The offices of NADMO Accra, the Youth Employment Agency in Tamale and Accra, the National Health Insurance offices in Tamale, and many others across the length and breadth of the country have been vandalized, and the officers subjected to threats, abuse, and physical attacks. As we speak, we have some of our supporters who are traders at Agbogboshi Market, a suburb of Accra, displaced from their market and have been sleeping at the party headquarters here to avoid being lynched by rampaging MPP hooligans. In addition to the burning of toll booths in the immediate aftermath of the election, we have also witnessed the seizure of toll booths at Adenta and Ashama and the criminal conduct of stealing monies collected during the days of the invasion. Ladies and gentlemen, we also note with concern that the MPP constituency executives are writing letters to heads of schools to discontinue the school feeding program until further notice. We consider this act unacceptable as it represents interference by a political party in the work of a state institution and also a clear threat to law and order.
All right, so the chairman of the NDC also called on the president, Akufo-Addo, to make his voice heard and to ceasefire to let the NDC supporters have their peace. Let's also hear what the majority leader, Chairman Sabunso, has been saying on this matter.
Nobody is justifying anything. I believe that those events were wrong yesterday, and they are wrong today as well.
All right. So the majority leader has been trying to defend the situation, saying that we experienced the same thing in 2008. Why is the NDC complaining now? He says that if it wasn't right then, it must not be right today. But then the NDC could have also, controlled it at that time when they were doing it to the NPP. Commander Sogbojo, let me take your thoughts on this. Interesting times in Ghana, right? Especially when we are seeing these things anytime there is a change in government. Is there any justification for these kind of attacks?
I find it rather unfortunate, very, very unfortunate. We have gone through a period of tension, setting up tenterhooks before the elections. The country managed to go through election peacefully. It's rather unfortunate these things are coming up. And if they are not checked, like for example, Agbobushi was mentioned, and we are aware that the situation in Agbobushi with respect to what had happened before in this country, referencing Kokomba, Nanumba, the Gomba, those issues, and clear lines are drawn between the NDC and the MPP. If anything happens there, it will backfire up to the north. And by the time the government spends money to try and get some peace, a lot of damage must have been done. I mean, two wrongs don't make a right.
Definitely.
I'm happy the minority leader came back and said it couldn't be justified some years ago and it can't be justified now.
Right.
I believe the government should hold the party supporters in rein.
Right.
And let's go through a peaceful, let's have some harmony and let the government settle down. If you go to folks who are cooking for school children and go and carry their utensils and whatever it is, the food they've bought, who suffers?
The country.
School children, the country. These things shouldn't go on. I will not forget history. This thing happened in Rwanda. We spoke a lot about it before before the elections. This thing not control can spark a bigger violence than we think. So I think that the government or the party in power should try and rein back its supporters and let this thing stop. I also don't believe in the NDC deciding to take the laws into their own hands. Then what happens? There are clear lines drawn in this country, is NDC or MPP. If we're going to start killing ourselves because one party is in power, the other is not, where do we go in this country? It's a bit unfortunate.
Once again, is it a failure on the part of the police not to be able to control the situation, or you think that there is some strong powers supporting these forces, as some people are thinking, and that's why the police hands are tied?
I personally believe, or I don't believe, that people will push them to go and commit violence. I think it's the jubilation. And don't forget, the folks in the party supporters of MPP have been in pain for 8 years because the same thing was done to them and nobody said a thing. So now they feel like this is the time for us to revenge. But when we come back to the police, they are understaffed. We can't push on them every point in the country to go and stop people doing that. But we'll have internal security problems. If the police think they can't, what they do? They refer it to Ministry of Defense. And soldiers will be added to their numbers to go and check them out. But these things are flashpoints. You don't know when they are going to, erupt. But we've spoken several times on television and radio. Intelligence gathering is the most important thing. People don't just get out one day, big gong and say, let's go and collect cooking utensils. There must be planning somewhere.
Right.
Let's go and take over a tool booth. There must be planning. If there is security or there is intelligence, they will know that this is what is going to happen.
And pick up those bits of information.
Let's stop it before it gets there. So maybe we're a bit lacking in that respect, intelligence gathering. We spoke a lot about it before the elections, and now we are at a different phase.
Interestingly, one of the things that people feel disappointed about is the fact that the president hasn't come out to call these boys to order. And what they think is that the position the president finds himself is so huge a position that if he comes out and people hear his voice saying, listen, this is a no, 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 that could be a solution to all of these.
Well, I believe it's become a biblical an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth, which is an old-time religion, you know. One of these things were happening 8 years ago. We didn't hear the president or anybody talking. But I'm not saying that because they didn't talk, it gives justification for what is happening now. But I believe that they will get involved and let this thing stop. We shouldn't apportion this blame to the hierarchy of those parties. People taking things in their own hands are quite different. But of course, in every constituency or every ward, they have leaders. The leaders will get information from the regions and the district to try and rein in their supporters from causing more havoc.
Dave, this certainly is an institutional failure. I mean, we experienced this in 2008. One would have thought that would have learned our lessons and never get back to here. But here we are back to ground zero.
Yes, Aisha, I must say that Captain Sogwa just said a lot of things, and it is about intelligence gathering, and which we did exactly so. Ghana Institute of Governance and Security, we whispered into the ears of the security apparatus. I recall before the inauguration of Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, we granted an interview to your sister station, Star FM, and I emphasized strongly that the security agencies need to be more alert and more proactive, because these are the signals that we have picked, and it suggests that a lot of mayhem, a lot of vandalism, a lot of attack are going to happen in this country. And so security agencies need to be more proactive and more alert enough. They didn't pay attention, although they seem to be doing something good, trying to mitigate the situation. Yes, but then security is more like the heartbeat of a nation, and you need to always put your ears on the ground and be able to gather a lot of information, because human beings, we are very complex in all situations. You do not know when somebody will be doing something unthinkable. So
and I think that's where the intelligence comes in.
Exactly. Yes. Your ears need to be on the ground to be able to see the feeling and the anxiety of people all the time, so that when you are planning your itinerary and earmarking, deploying people, you will know these people exactly.
But
so
let
I
me
think
correct
that
this
it was
point.
a bit of a failure.
Star FM is not our sister station; it's another media house. It's our competitor.
I use it exactly. I use it in.
All right. So finally, Wing Commander, we certainly have to move away from this era. We can't remain like this. Are the politicians helping us?
I think there must be some amount of failure with regards to the politicians, in the sense that this is permeated into almost every fabric. It's going into even areas that you didn't think that it should exist. You are here, you are for us, or you are not for us. I will push you out of your job because you are not here. I'll bring some. It's irrelevant and unimportant. The machinery of governance must work, whether you belong to party A or party B. So if I allow this thing to go up to the upper echelon, how much more on the ground? And these boys are going to fight it out among themselves.
And of course, the country will be the loser.
Yes,
many thanks to you for coming, Wing Commander Sojo and
I must say that we shouldn't step into a state of nature where there is no law. And so we should be able to mitigate some of these things happening.
Well, many thanks for passing by, gentlemen. My name is Aisha Ibrahim. This is today's big story. Good evening.